I'm on a train, rolling through San Bernardino, 3 days into the best vacation of my year, when my phone buzzes. It's my landlord. Someone broke into your house. I think they might still be inside. My stomach drops. My mountain bikes. My tools. My truck keys. Everything I own is in that house. And 30 minutes of silence later, I get one more text. Payback is a bitch. Before I tell you how this played out. And trust me, it's one of the most surgical, patient revenge stories you'll ever hear. Hit that subscribe button. Because this isn't a story about a villain. It's a story about a genuinely good guy who got pushed too far by his own tenant and decided that the best revenge is a slow one. Let's get into it. My family and I moved into a rental house back in July of 2024. Nice place, quiet street, good schools nearby. The kind of house you sign a 2-year lease on because you actually plan on staying. We didn't rent from the owner directly. We rented through a property management company, which meant our actual point of contact was a broker. A good one, from what I remember. Professional. Responsive. The kind of guy who fixes a leaky faucet complaint within 48 hours instead of ghosting you for 3 weeks. Then, about a year in, that broker passed away. I want to sit with that for a second, because it's easy to skip past in a story like this. But it matters. This wasn't some corporate shuffle. A real person who managed this business and this house died. And suddenly the actual owner of the property, a man I'll call Mike for this story, had to step in and start managing the house himself. No buffer, no middleman, just him and us. Mike is an airline captain. Picture the stereotype and you're not far off. Calm voice, methodical, the kind of guy who reads the fine print because his job depends on checklists. We met up to sign a new lease directly with him, and honestly, I liked him immediately. He wasn't cold or transactional. He asked about our kids. He asked what we thought needed fixing around the house. And that's how it started. We became friends. Actual friends. He'd come by, we'd work on projects around the house together, replacing a fence panel, fixing a sprinkler line. And in exchange, he'd knock a little off that month's rent. It wasn't landlord and tenant anymore. It felt like two guys helping each other out. Here's the detail that matters most, though. The one I didn't think about until it was too late. Mike was between jobs, in a sense. He was grounded, waiting on a medical review before he could fly again. For a pilot, that's not a small inconvenience. That's your entire paycheck evaporating while a review board decides your fate. He didn't advertise it. He didn't complain about it. But it was there, quietly, in the background of every conversation we had. I knew this. I knew this. And then April Fool's Day happened. The prank. I don't know what possessed me. Maybe I just thought it'd be funny. Maybe I wanted to see if I could get a reaction out of the unshakable airline captain. So I texted Mike that we were short on rent this month. The reply came back fast. No anger, no irritation. Just, I understand. Get me the balance as soon as you can. And that's when it hit me. The gut punch, oh no, what have I done feeling. This man is genuinely worried about money right now, and I just handed him one more thing to worry about, as a joke. I scrambled to fix it. Texted him back immediately. April Fools. We have the money. Sending it today. I'm sorry. I forgot about your situation. His response was almost too calm. That's actually pretty funny. But payback is coming. I laughed it off. I actually laughed it off. In my head, payback meant maybe he'd prank me back. Leave a fake parking ticket on my windshield. Tell me the water was getting shut off for a day. Something petty. Something fun. I had no idea I was dealing with a man who thinks in checklists and long final approaches, not short bursts of impulse. I had just poked a very patient bear, and I wouldn't understand how patient until 19 days later. The waiting game. Mid-April rolls around, and my family's buzzing with excitement. We booked a cruise out of California, the kind of trip you start looking forward to the second you book it. I mentioned it to Mike in passing, the way you'd mention anything to a friend. He offered to swing by the house while we were gone, just to keep an eye on things. Genuinely thoughtful, right? That's exactly what I thought at the time. April 19th arrives. We load up, drive from Denver to Albuquerque, catch the Amtrak toward LA. My wife's got a book out. My son's got his face against the window. I'm scrolling through my phone, that specific kind of relaxed you only feel in the first hours of a vacation, when your body hasn't caught up to the fact that work doesn't exist for the next week. We're passing through San Bernardino when my phone buzzes. It's Mike. Just drove by the house. The garage door looks like it's been jacked up. Someone forced it open enough to crawl under. I think someone might still be inside. Waiting on police now. I read it twice. My chest goes tight, that cold water down the spine feeling. I read it a third time to make sure I wasn't misunderstanding. Then my brain does what everyone's brain does in that moment. It starts cataloging, not the big things, the specific things. My mountain bikes, the ones I'd saved up for over 2 years. My tools, sitting in that garage, each one a small memory of a project I was proud of. The spare key to my truck. The truck that was sitting in that driveway completely unattended, completely unlocked to whoever was crawling around inside my home right now. I show my wife the text. Her face goes pale in that instant way that tells you she's doing the exact same mental inventory I am. And then, nothing. 30 minutes of nothing. 30 minutes on a moving train, unable to do a single thing except sit there and imagine strangers walking through your bedroom, your kid's room, going through drawers. 30 minutes where every possible worst-case scenario gets to play out in your head, uninterrupted, because there's no new information to correct it. I pull up the Ring app with hands that aren't quite steady. I flip through the motion alerts by the garage door, bracing myself for a stranger's silhouette. Instead, the neighbor kid. The one who comes by sometimes looking for my son to come play. That's it. That's the only activity on the camera all day. Weird. I'm still trying to make sense of it. Maybe the camera missed something. Maybe they came from the back. When my wife says something that stops me cold. Wait, remember the rent thing? The prank? And the second she says it, I know. I know before I even want to admit it to myself. The reveal. A few minutes later, my phone buzzes one more time. 4 words. That's all it took for the entire picture to snap into focus. There was no break-in. There was no intruder. There was a man who had spent 19 days quietly building the most elaborate, patient, perfectly timed prank I have ever been on the receiving end of. And he waited until I was 3 hours from home, on a train, with zero ability to check on my own house, to deliver it. Think about the setup here. He didn't do this the day after April Fool's, when I'd have been braced for retaliation. He let the tension dissolve completely. He let weeks pass. He let me relax, plan a vacation, tell him about it voluntarily. And then he offered, generously, kindly, to keep an eye on the place while we were away. I practically handed him the perfect delivery window myself. And the details. The garage door jacked up, the specific mention of someone possibly still inside. Those weren't random. Those were chosen because they were exactly the kind of details that would hit hardest. He knew what would make my stomach drop the fastest, and he built the lie around it. I sat there on that train, phone in my shaking hand, and I actually started laughing. Not the polite, forced kind. The real, involuntary kind. The kind that comes from a mix of relief and genuine, helpless admiration. Because here's the thing. He got me. Completely. Surgically. And there wasn't a single part of it that was actually cruel. No property was touched. No real fear-inducing lie beyond the exact scope of what I'd done to him. He mirrored my prank back at me, but bigger, better executed, and with the kind of patience I clearly didn't have when I fired off that fake rent text without thinking. My wife staring at me, half annoyed, half laughing herself as I type back a response. I don't even try to act wronged. There's no version of that argument I can win. I text him back, okay, you got me. That's incredible. I'm still shaking, you absolute lunatic. He sends back a laughing emoji and, only then, confirms. No break-in. House is totally fine. He just wanted to return the favor properly. 19 days of patience for a joke I hadn't thought about in weeks. The tightness in my chest finally releases. My shoulders drop for the first time since San Bernardino. And underneath the relief, there's this strange, genuine respect settling in. For a guy who could have just been cold and businesslike about the rent joke, could have held a real grudge, but instead chose to turn it into something we'd both laugh about for years. Here's the honest truth, and I'll say it plainly. I deserved it. I knew Mike was in a rough financial spot, grounded and waiting on a medical review, and I still thought it'd be funny to joke about being short on rent. I forgot, for one careless second, that jokes land differently depending on what someone's already carrying. He reminded me, patiently, harmlessly, and unforgettably, that actions have a way of finding their way back to you, usually when you least expect it. If this story had your stomach in knots right along with mine, do me a favor, smash that like button and drop a comment. What's the most patient, perfectly executed revenge you've ever witnessed or pulled off yourself? I read every single one. And if you want more stories like this, real people, real payback, real justice, subscribe, because this is exactly the kind of thing we cover here every week.